One of the mistakes that people get to make after they've signed their LOI and they sign their PSA is that they think after the 30 days, due diligence is all over. The thing about buying a property is that that is the beginning of the assignment. How is everyone doing today? We just wrapped up on a deal. Ify and I and some other group of people, I think I shared a part of it 2 months ago in our last meeting, and we talked about how very stressful the deal was and that we're going to give us a run through. Today's topic is you got the LOI, now what? Due diligence pitfalls. One of the mistakes that people get to make after they've signed their LOI and they sign their PSA is that they think after the 30 days, due diligence is all over. The thing about buying a property is that that is the beginning of the assignment. So the moment whereby you want to start executing your PSA, for those of us that are new, is called purchase agreement. The idea is for you to put an agreement between you and the seller. So typically, like I said last week, it's going to be at a point whereby the both of you need to compromise because the seller wants terms that will favor him. You also want terms that will favor you. So it will have a lot to do with compromising. So this is why I always tell people, learn to pick your battles. You can't fight all the wars and all that. You need to pick the one that is most relevant to you and the ones that can actually protect you and the ones that can break you. So if you are sure of those angles, the things that can protect you, then you go for it. And we're going to give you a practical example. For me, there's some standard. So there are some things that are particular to me and might not be particular to you. So what are those things that I look out for with my PSA that I'll walk away rather than going ahead with you on doing that? One of the things I must put in that PSA is that my vacancy must not go below 90% during the time we're under contract. And the reason why is that once it becomes unstable, the thing about it is that most lenders will monitor the deal. So some days to close and before they send you a message that they want to lock the rates, they go and do another final underwriting. They are going to go and check the numbers. They're going to check the vacancy. So at that point, the deal, let's say, is 85 and you're under contract at 95. Most lenders will not move forward. They might give you, because you are their client, and the buyer is the customer to them. So they will tell you, you can't close because this is unstable, right? So another thing they can do is to give you some time with your seller to adjust, to ensure. So for me, that's very critical for me to close. There's one thing I will not be able to let go. I'd rather walk away from a deal if a seller is not willing to include that into the agreement. So like I said, it just depends on you. If I'm doing a deal that is already unstable, and let's say the deal was 70%, I know that I'm going for a bridge loan, and I know that the business plan for me is to make it stable by executing my business plan, adding value to it, and refinancing in maybe 3 years, my PSA will speak differently. Rather, I will address other things based on it. But in this case, because I'm going into a property that was presented to me as stable, then it will have to remain stable till I close. So that is one thing I will never underlook. But guess what? Sellers are getting their ways around it. Yes, you want 90%, we'll give it to you. What are they doing? They can bring dummy tenants, bring any Tom, Dick, and Harry. Just bring them in, just come in and fill up. They want 90%, they just remain. Or they will decide not to evict people that are not paying. They'll decide not to evict them so that occupancy will remain. So this is how I've been able to, because I've been studying what I've been going on. So I've decided to work my way around it. Rather than me saying that, give me 90%, I'm going to go through my net rental income. What does that entail? My net rental income is basically my base rent. So if I'm doing my underwriting and let's say your highest point was 200,000 monthly, maybe in December you got 200,000, November you got 200. So that means your average to a large extent is 200. It means that if I give him a deal that is relatively lower than that, then I'm going to have issues. So not just that I'm going to put this deal must not be lower than 90%, I'm going to also address the income part, because if you put a bad tenant, be sure that that tenant will be able to pay that rent till we close. So typically our closing takes us 4 to 5 months. So is it sustainable? Will a bad tenant really pay rent for 5 months or 4 months? It's going to be very difficult. And guess what again? If that bad tenant decides to stay on your property and you do not evict and they're not paying rent, it's also going to reduce your base rent. It's going to come in as delinquencies. So in other way, I am protecting all the angles of my income. I'm also protecting all the angles of my occupancy. So So in other words, I'm taking care of both. So what people do mostly is they just put in a PSA, the physical occupancy, which is the number of people on the property. Now, I'm not just going to address the number of people on the property, I'm going to address the financial part of it. How much is the property producing, and as well as the number of people. Those are the things I'm going to address on my PSA. I'm not going to address one because sellers are people like us, are the experience as well. Imagine me selling a property. I'm very sure, except it's a buyer that is like me or better than me, then we're going to have an issue. But if I'm the one selling, I'm going to make it as much as possible to protect me because I've been a buyer and I know the things buyers look out for. So now it feels like we're having those kind of experienced sellers that know the wiggle room on how to do things. So that's why I'm pointing this out to those of you that are new or you're about signing a PSA. Don't just address the occupancy in your PSA, address the economical part of it because they can get their way around the physical part of it by putting in every Tom, Dick, and Harry. But the financial part of it, how long will they want to fund it with their funds? Nobody wants to lose money, you know? So better to do the right thing and do the job well. So I always put that in. And the clause is, if you go against that, I have the right to walk away with my complete EMD, meaning that if you default, during the contract, it says my EMD is non-refundable in 30 days. That would be one of the reasons why we exit, and I'll collect back my non-refundable EMD at that point. So you just need to look for creative way. But guess what? This deal that has given us a lot of stress, for the first time I had a seller push me on that. I've never had that challenge in the sense that I've never had them say, yes, we'll take everything you said, but you're not going to put a clause to it. So the thing is, they accepted the vacancy part of it, they accepted the economical part of it, but they said that clause, you will not. How would you state that to us? Okay. Yes, you don't need to know how to state it. That's why you always have a lawyer. Like in the last session we did, I told you the type of partners that you need to have. Your lawyer exactly knows what you want. You need to just explain it in a plainest of ways that you can, that I want this type of clause. They will add it to it. They know what you're saying, especially if they're using the experienced ones to do it. They know what you're saying. So all you need to do is, I want a clause that will protect my physical and economical occupancy, and I want to tie it to my non-refundable NS money so that I can get it back. So back to what I was saying, for the first time, I had the seller push back on it. He accepted every other thing, but he did not want to tie it to him refunding my money, our EMD. So invariably, we went around the circle 2 extra weeks just because of that clause. So I said, okay, how can we go around this during our PSA? How can I also achieve this? And it's not obvious to him that that's what I want to achieve, because I need wiggle rooms, I need pit holes to escape in case this deal is not exactly what I want. That's one thing you want to ensure that you do. You want to have multiple exits, regardless of the fact that you've already said it's a non-refundable deposit. What if you did your due diligence the first 30 days, everything was fine, numbers good, all of a sudden, after your money has gone, the seller said, oh, bye, guys, I'm traveling out, and he dumps the property and the property nosedives and everything just goes south? What would you do? The money has gone, so you have to put some responsibility on the seller and not just for you to give him a wiggle way out. So it means that, yes, my money has gone, not refundable, but if you do this, I will go back and ask for my money. So I looked for another wiggle room since I got a pushback from my seller. One thing I want to point out is that in this business that we're doing, you need to get the fiercest of lawyers. A lawyer that is ready to tear the wall for you, fight them, be very defensive. It's a pity that on this particular deal, we had the worst lawyer. If you can remember our Maverick deal, I thought we had the worst lawyer ever, but so this is stopping it for us, because can you believe a deal where the lawyer, you are the defendant of the entire thing? That was going to happen. At a point, we had to stand up to be our lawyer, and our lawyer was on the seller's side and we were on our side. We had to not just challenge our lawyer, we had to challenge the seller's lawyer, and we had to challenge the seller. That was too much. Although we won, but it took a lot. So my point here is, to reduce the stress, you need to get a good lawyer. Forget the amount. At some point, I think I had a conversation with Ify that we used a very good lawyer that knew what they were doing for our previous deal that we closed last year. Very good lawyer, but the money was so much that we were like, oh no, this is too high. But after we closed on this deal, we said, if you ask me to choose, I'd rather pay that very high money than have to do a job of a lawyer that I paid not too far off from what we paid the other lawyer, you know. So it didn't make sense again. So I was like, make this thing make sense to us. It did not make sense. So invest. Don't invest in quantity. keep, invest in quality at this point. I'm going to give you the story of the Roach property. This property was very beautiful. One good area in Dallas. Going by that area, you feel that yes, the property should be good, and the outward appearance was beautiful. So somebody called us to be part of the deal. It was not a deal that I started from the beginning, but they were at the point of where they needed to present a KP because they didn't have the network. So they reached out to us and we said, okay, yes, we can KP the deal, but there's one condition I always have. Before I can KP your deal, I have to do the underwriting myself and visit the property as well to be sure of what we are signing, because there's something you need to understand. For the fact that somebody is trying to help you get the loan from the bank, if the person is not willing to go through the stress of underwriting the deal to ensure that the deal suits purpose, is good, like what you said, and also the physical appearance is also void of so many deferred maintenance, just as you've communicated to him, you find out that you'll be in trouble. So let me let you know that the only person that cannot be left off the hook on a deal is the guarantor on the loan. So every other GP can say, bye guys, I'm done. I've seen cases whereby GPs sign off and say, I'm not doing this again, guys. It's not it for me and I'm walking away. We've seen cases like that. It does happen because they have nothing to lose. They're not the guarantor, but the guarantor on that deal cannot walk away. So for the fact that if you're a guarantor on a deal and you know that to the sell of the deal, you can't get out of it, then you need to do your own due diligence. So that was how we went to that property. We did the numbers. The numbers made sense, not so much that I would have wanted, but it was something I could ignore because it was close to our base. That baseline for our cash on cash, that means we don't want to go below this on our deals for our cash on cash. Also, we don't also want to go below some certain IRL. It was just at the borderline of it. And I said, okay, maybe if I visit the property, I could see some value add opportunities that we could add to the underwriting to maybe improve on the numbers in the future. So that was one of my motivation. But at the same time, we don't also want to visit a property without seeing what we have bought. You know, have you bought something from Temu? What I ordered versus what I got. Have you had that experience before? Oh my God, you don't want to be in that shoe. What I ordered versus what I got, that is what we saw. What I ordered versus what I got. So unfortunately for us, they kind of avoided us from seeing the property, but we were in the car and for very good reasons. I was with my business partner and we were in a very good car, and that was what attracted the tenant. So the tenant was in the house and saw the car that we're in, and he just wanted to compliment us and say this was good. And in the process of doing that, I just came down from the car. I said, sorry, do you stay here? He said, yes, sir, this is my house. I was actually looking at you guys from inside, so that's why I came out. I said, oh, that we're trying to tour this property, but we just came up with a story, told the guy that we're not able to see it, but we want to actually rent it. I'm looking for a place to rent for my sister, and it's not, I really want to see it, an idea of what the layout looks like before I can go and pay. And he said, oh, sure, come and see. That house is currently on my page. I didn't believe what I saw. I think we've seen crazy, but what we saw, it brought us to tears. As in, I couldn't believe that such thing could exist at all. Right from the doorstep, when they opened it, it was a swarm of roaches. It was not one, as in, I'm saying in thousands. I did a video of it that is uncountable. You can't even count it. It was that bad. So they actually tried to sweep some and gathered it. I didn't even know it was roaches. It's like, this is some. I was like, Jesus. I was like, are you for real? Roaches was everywhere, climbing, dropping, everywhere, dropping. There was no way out of it. Your leg, roaches everywhere. Oh my God. I was busy doing this. I was doing like this and I was walking with my camera. I said that was not enough. The sheet rock from the ceiling had fallen. It has collapsed. The bathroom water was dropping into the living room, into the kitchen. They had 3 babies in the house. I was asking them, how do you guys eat? They said the cockroaches enters the food. They're used to it and all that. It was really bad. There was mold, everything you can think of in the house. And I was like, is this just you guys or is something? I said, no, that they've barely been in this house for 8 months. I was opportunity to meet the wife. She was home. She showed me the picture of 8 months ago, how the house looked like. Apparently, the house was a make-believe. It was cosmetic. Everything was fine, painted, thing. So how the thing transitioned from what it was to what I saw, I just could not believe it. If I didn't see the video, I would have said she was lying. But when I saw it, I was like, no, this is really bad. So apparently, the landlord was not managing the house, and they said it was not unique to them. It was other tenants were also complaining. So we're like, if one unit is this bad, that means we should expect this almost everywhere on the property. And there was no way in this world we're going to go under contract on this. So we immediately called the broker and said, see, we're going to give them an opportunity to tell the seller to treat those people right, to go repair the house. If not, they know. So we didn't say more than that, but the idea was that if you don't go and do this, this is human neglect and that's wickedness of the ISD. You can't have your enemy stay in that place, not to talk of someone that is your tenant that pays. And she pays a very good amount of money, 1,800, about good amount of money to be living in that kind of place. So if you was saying is that before we even do an LOI, always make a provision. I'm going to ask you, in my LOI, I'm going to put there, I need preliminary access to your property. It's something I must have. And it's not unique to everyone because of the experiences of seeing Timo-like type of what I ordered versus what I got. I've seen cases whereby it has serious foundation issues and they can disclose that to us. But because we had early access, the tenants were the ones that told us, this house, it will soon collapse, and all that. So that thing has really prevented us, one, from spending money ahead of time, in the sense that we would have engaged our lawyer, and the lawyer's money, at least 50% must be paid upfront. You'd have paid money to your property management and to some other team members that are going to come and check and do inspection, some large chunk of money. So in order for me to avoid those kind of wastes, although there's a particular amount I still have to spend, with just a little, let me say 20 to 30% of that, you still need to be spent for the preliminary. I rather prefer to lose 20 to 30% of my entire due diligence amount. I don't know if you understand. So it's not good for everyone if you don't have the funds, because we've walked away on many deals like that and we lost money. So if you don't have that capacity to know that some money can be lost because you need to do a proper due diligence, don't do it. It's something for us, we need to do. So because we always have that in our LOI, before we sign our PSA, we would have gone through about 80 to 90% of our due diligence right before we sign our PSA, because we've already had early access to the property. So note that some sellers will not allow you. They'll push back and say, no, you've not even signed contract and you want to be seeing my property. Am I sure that you're going to close on the deal? One thing I always try to hook them up with is, I will say, okay, if you allow me early access, 20,000 or 10,000 of my EMD will go out in 4 to 7 days, depending on how very aggressive the seller is. 4 days, sometimes 7 days, they will give me. So the idea is, between my preliminary due diligence, that is before I sign my PSA, and before the 4th day that my money is intended to go out, I would have done my 100% due diligence. Everything that will make me say no would have been performed.